and we'll come here, and we're just going to make a utility function, a function that's just going to test all this stuff. So is all valid. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all the inputs. We're going to look at each of them and put a function in, and I and E are the arguments. I is the index and E is the element. For valid equals true, we're going to assume it's valid. Now it's only going to be valid if for each thing E dot value, since E is a input, it has a value attribute. So valid equals valid to valid, and there has to be a value. So we're just going to put the not in front of it just to evaluate it as a, just to evaluate it as a boolean. So basically, if it has a value and everything is valid so far, then everything is valid. And we're just going to return this so that if it returns false, this will actually break, and we don't have to waste time keep on iterating. Another one we want to do is select the ID where it ends with underscore error, and the underscore error goes in quotes, and dot each dot function I E, this goes inside with the function. Get rid of that and that, put this back, semicolon, and we'll return valid equals valid, and not E dot inner HTML. So the inner HTML of this element means that there is an error here, so we're trying to find that there's not an error and that everything's been valid so far. So finally, we would have a global reference to sign up, and we'll set it here, and sign up dot button, and we will set the disabled. It'll be valid, and if it is valid, should be, which would be true. If everything was valid, then it'll be true, but we have to think of it as disabled. So if it's valid, then not valid is false. False disabled means that it's enabled. We'll enable it if everything's valid. Okay, and what we have to do is just call this function at the end of every checker function. So we'll save it, come over here to validate, let's find it, JS validate.js, and at the very end of this we'll call it, and at the end of this we'll call it, and at the end of this we'll call it, save it, come back here, refresh. Well, let's do a hard refresh. So just to make sure we did everything right. And so this is still saying invalidate, so we can use a debugger to figure out why it's saying invalidate still. So we need to look at sign up or validate.js, come down to here, and something else I forgot to mention when I wrote this JS function is that I put this in the wrong order. This should be month, this should be day, so that's important. So we'll refresh this, give this focus, lose it focus. So still quite not right. let's see. So D is 3:30. So I had it wrong. You don't add one to the day, you add one to the month. So we'll change that. Get rid of that. Add one to the month instead. Save it. Come back here, refresh. And D42991, that's good. And that should be true as well. So we're not having the error anymore. And we'll put a password here. And it doesn't seem to be con. Let's see what isValid is actually doing. So we'll jump into that function. We start off as true. So this ends up being false. Okay. So we need to look at each of these, see why it's coming up as false. So let's skip that step. So e.value. Okay, so it's still true. Password is true. It's true. Okay, so we have a problem. When we say to look at all the input, it also looks at the submit button, which is not a good thing. So we want to find something that's different between these, and I see that these each have a name and this doesn't. So let's, instead of selecting all input, let's only select input that have a name attribute. So we'll save it, come back here, refresh, put our password back in, and you see that this became enabled now, and we can submit query. And it says the email's already in use because I know I signed in earlier with this. That's working, and I don't like that this says submit query. I also don't like that this is so big. So what we're going to do is go to the CSS, sign up CSS, choose sign up, and we're going to set the padding to be 0, and we'll go to the JSP, change the value of this to be sign up. Save it, and you want to make sure that the way you type sign up is the same everywhere. Like for example, I used the minus sign here, so since I seem to not want to use the minus sign, so I use sign space up here, I use sign space up here, so I have to change the template. So let's go to template.java, and we set that up here, so that'll be sign space up. This will also be the same logic, so this will be log space in, based out on the same thought process. So now that I'm looking at this without the padding, I decide I don't like it, so I'm going to change my mind about this. Let's put the padding back as it was, save it, come back, refresh it. Okay. Alright, so that's everything. Everything is all clean. Everything looks good, and we'll learn how to actually log in with an account that has already been created. I'm Logan Murphy, and I will see you next time.